I didn't take care of my body because I kept telling myself it would fix itself. That's the truth I've been circling for years without saying out loud. I wasn't busy. I wasn't too stressed. I wasn't unaware. I just chose not to look. Every ache, every warning, every small sign that something was wrong, I pushed aside with the same sentence: it'll pass. A headache, a tightness in the chest, a numb hand, a strange fatigue that didn't make sense. I treated them like weather, something to wait out, something temporary. Even now, saying it, I feel that old instinct to downplay it, to soften it, to make it sound less stupid than it was. But there it is. I ignored myself, on purpose. Not because I didn't care, but because acknowledging any of it would have meant admitting that I was aging, that I wasn't invincible, that the body I carried every day was trying to speak to me and I didn't want to listen. I remember mornings in my 30s when I'd wake up feeling like my joints belonged to someone older. I'd laugh it off, crack my neck, tell myself I'd slept funny. In my 40s, the heaviness in my legs after walking a few blocks, I blamed the shoes. The tightness in my chest after climbing stairs, I blamed the weather. The headaches that lasted days, I blamed screens, stress, anything except the possibility that my body needed attention. I used to think that was resilience, pushing through, being strong. I didn't realize it was just avoidance dressed up as discipline. I carried on with my life, eating whatever was easy, sleeping whenever I happened to fall asleep, sitting down more, moving less, convincing myself that normal meant harmless. My friends started going to doctors regularly. I didn't. They talked about vitamins, tests, small lifestyle changes. I nodded, joked about being too stubborn for that. Deep down, I knew something was shifting in me, a quiet tiredness that didn't go away, a stiffness that settled deeper each year. But I kept telling myself I'd deal with it later, when it was more serious, when I had time, when the season changed, when I felt ready. Later never came. I didn't let it. And now I'm sitting here saying this out loud for the first time, feeling the weight of all those ignored mornings and shrugged off evenings pressing against my ribs. I told myself the body can handle anything if you just power through. I told myself pain was temporary, fatigue was temporary, discomfort was temporary. But what I really meant was, I didn't want to know. I didn't want to face the fact that something fragile was happening inside me, quietly, slowly, while I pretended I was fine. And now that I finally said it, there's this strange silence in me, the kind that follows a truth you avoided for too long, the kind that doesn't feel like relief. Just a space where excuses used to be. I used to think my life was perfectly ordinary, the kind where nothing dramatic ever really happens, and maybe that's why it took me so long to notice what was going on inside me. From the outside, everything looked fine. I worked, I came home, I ate dinner in front of the TV, I took weekend trips to the same grocery store, bought the same bread, the same brand of coffee. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't living fast. If anything, I was boring in the safest possible way. I had a job that didn't demand much from my body, a routine that never changed, habits that felt harmless. Even now, when I think back to those years, nothing jumps out as the moment things went wrong. There were no accidents, no illnesses that should have shaken me, no dramatic warnings. Just life. The kind everyone calls normal. I'd wake up, stretch half-heartedly, promise myself I'd start jogging next week. I'd fry something quick, tell myself I'd cook healthier when work calmed down. I'd get a strange pain in my side and decide it was probably from sleeping weird. I lived in this mild fog of it's nothing for decades. And the strange part is, I genuinely believed it. That's what frightens me now. I wasn't lying to anyone. I wasn't trying to be heroic or stubborn. I simply didn't see my choices as choices. I saw them as the default, the way adults live. Everyone around me seemed tired. Everyone had aches, skipped checkups, joked about getting old. I blended into that, thinking it made me normal. My life looked stable, steady job, steady home, steady meals, steady problems, nothing that anyone would worry about. When colleagues talked about blood tests, I shrugged it off. When someone mentioned they'd started watching their diet, I made a joke about loving fried food too much. I didn't realize those little comments were warnings, not conversations. I didn't see how often I was short of breath walking upstairs because I always carried bags and told myself it was the weight. I didn't notice how my shirts were getting tighter because I kept blaming the laundry. I didn't connect the afternoon crashes, the heart pounding after simple chores, the nights where sleep felt like a battle. It all seemed too small to matter, too small to be the start of anything serious. I wasn't unhappy. That's the thing. I didn't walk around feeling miserable. I wasn't depressed or reckless or self-destructive. I was just disconnected. From my body, from my limits, from the idea that paying attention early might save you later. I thought normal life meant tolerating discomfort. You push through, you keep going, you don't make a fuss. And because everything on the surface looked calm, I convinced myself the underneath must be calm too. But it wasn't. It was already shifting, tightening, wearing down in ways I chose not to see. And when I look back at that version of myself, walking through a life that seemed so predictable, I can't help but feel this strange mix of recognition and distance. I know that person, but I also know he was already losing pieces of himself quietly, in the most ordinary ways. I played my role well. That's something I can say without hesitation. I did everything a responsible adult is supposed to do. I showed up to work even when I felt like my bones were filled with sand. I carried groceries up the stairs when my legs trembled halfway. I smiled at family gatherings, told everyone I was fine, poured myself a drink to smooth out the edges of whatever pain I'd been ignoring that week. I went through every motion exactly the way people expect someone in their 30s and 40s to behave. Steady, reliable, functioning, and for a long time that was enough to fool me. It felt like proof that nothing was really wrong. If I could keep moving, then it couldn't be serious. If I could push through it, then it couldn't be dangerous. It's strange how easily the body adapts when you force it to, how it learns to perform even when it's calling for help. I remember moments now, small ones, almost invisible, when I felt something wasn't right. Like those nights when I'd lie down and feel my heartbeat thudding too loudly in my ears, but I'd tell myself it was just stress. Or the mornings when I'd get dizzy tying my shoes and blame it on standing up too fast. I'd rub my chest when it tightened, take a deep breath, and convince myself it was just leftover tension. I never let those moments linger long enough to scare me. I swallowed them, buried them under routine, and kept going. My family thought I was the sturdy one, the dependable one, the one who didn't complain. And I leaned into that. I liked being seen that way. It made me feel useful, solid, present. I didn't realize I was using that image to hide from myself. There's a kind of pride in never missing a day of work, even when you should have stayed home. A kind of pride in carrying heavy boxes just to prove you still can. But pride doesn't care about consequences. It doesn't care about the small warning signs. It only cares about being right, and I let that pride drive me for years. I'd sit at dinners pretending to enjoy food that made my stomach twist because admitting it bothered me felt like weakness. I'd tell people I was just tired when my limbs felt like they were sinking. I'd stand in the mirror and ignore the swelling in my face, the dullness in my eyes. the heaviness settling under my skin, and no one knew. Not because they didn't care, but because I never let them see it. I was playing the part of someone healthy, someone strong, someone who didn't need anything. And the thing is, once you play that role long enough, people believe it. They stop asking if you're all right. They stop noticing the winces, the pauses, the way you shift your weight because something hurts. They let you carry yourself the same way you've shown them you always will. I thought I was doing the right thing, being tough, being unbothered, being the kind of person others could rely on. But now, when I look back, all I see is distance. Distance between me and the people who might have helped if I'd let them. Distance between me and my own body, which was calling out in small, desperate ways I refused to hear. Distance between the life I performed and the one I was actually living. I kept up the act because it felt safer than admitting I was fragile, safer than admitting I needed to slow down, see a doctor, change something, anything. But the truth is simple. You can't outrun what's happening inside you. Not forever. And I see now that all those years of pretending didn't make me strong. They just made me blind. It didn't happen in some dramatic collapse the way people imagine. No ambulance, no moment of clutching my chest, no cinematic warning. It was quieter than that, almost disappointingly ordinary. I remember the morning it finally broke through, not because anything catastrophic happened, but because nothing happened at all. I woke up and felt heavy. Not tired, not sick, just heavy. Like my body was a coat I'd forgotten I was wearing for years. I sat on the edge of the bed longer than usual, waiting for the familiar wave of "it'll pass" to wash over me. It didn't. I stood up and felt a sharp pull in my lower back, the kind I'd felt 100 times before, but this time my body didn't move past it. It held on to the pain as if refusing to let me pretend anymore. I walked to the kitchen, slow, stiff, each step making something inside me tighten. The kettle hissed, the same way it always did, but I couldn't bring myself to pour the water. I just stood there, staring at my own hand resting on the counter, noticing how swollen my fingers looked, how pale the knuckles were. It wasn't new. I'd seen them like that for years. I just never really looked. And that was the moment. That stillness, that stupid quiet kitchen with the weak morning light on the tiles, when I understood something had shifted beyond repair. I leaned against the counter, waiting for the usual excuses to rise up. Maybe I slept wrong. Maybe it was the weather. Maybe I'd eaten something too heavy the night before. But none of those thoughts felt convincing anymore. They felt thin, flimsy, like I'd said them too many times for them to hold any weight. I took a breath, and even that hurt a little. Not dramatically, just enough to make me realize I'd forgotten what easy breathing felt like. I looked around the room, the chair I always sat in, the mug I always used, the fridge with its usual clutter of receipts and expired magnets, and it all felt distant, like I was walking through a place where someone else had lived a long, unthinking life. A life that looked fine until you saw the cracks spreading under the paint. Later that week, I tried to mow the lawn, a simple task. I'd done it hundreds of times, but my hands shook on the handle, and my legs felt rubbery before I even reached the end of the yard. I had to stop halfway, sit on the back step, and wait for my heart to slow down. I remember staring at my hands, noticing how they trembled even when resting in my lap. And for the first time, the thought wasn't "this will pass." It was, "this has been happening for years." That realization hit harder than any pain. It wasn't fear exactly, more like recognition. Like seeing a stranger in the mirror and realizing he's been there all along, just slightly out of focus. I thought about all the ignored mornings, the skipped appointments, the jokes I made about getting older. I thought about the way I'd wave off concern, the way I'd insist I felt fine, the way I'd sit through discomfort because acknowledging it felt like failure. And suddenly I could see it, the pattern, the repetition, the small betrayals of my own body that I'd shrugged off until they stacked high enough to trap me. I spent the rest of that day moving slowly, touching the edges of my own life like they were unfamiliar. Sitting down felt different. Standing up felt different. Even the air felt heavier. And somewhere between the afternoon light and the quiet of that evening, the truth settled in. There was no later anymore. No, when things calmed down. No, after the holidays. No, next month. The time I kept postponing had arrived. Not with noise, not with drama, but with this quiet, undeniable understanding that I had crossed a line without noticing, and there was no way back. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't make an announcement or share some emotional revelation. I just sat on the edge of my bed that night, feeling every small pain, every breath that wasn't smooth, every part of me that felt worn down, and I understood, genuinely understood, that the body I had taken for granted had run out of patience, and I was the last one to notice. I sit with the truth now in a way I never could when it would have mattered. There's no fight left in it, no bargaining, no hopeful part of me waiting for some miracle turnaround. I wake up every morning in this body that I spent decades ignoring, and it tells me everything I refused to hear when I was younger. The stiffness doesn't fade, the aches don't ebb. The pills lined up on the counter aren't for getting better, they're just to keep me from falling apart faster than I already am. I used to think medication was something people took on their way back to health. Now it's the price I pay just to stand up without wincing. I never imagined that so much of my day would revolve around managing pain. Not curing it, not treating it, just managing it enough to get through the next hour. Every task has become a calculation. Can I carry this bag without my shoulder giving out? Can I walk to the store without stopping halfway? Can I sleep tonight, or will the joints in my hips keep me awake again? And every time I ask myself those things, there's this dull, familiar voice in the back of my mind saying, this is what "it will pass" turned into. I don't blame anyone. There's no one to blame. I was the one who didn't listen. I was the one who thought getting older meant dealing with a little discomfort, not realizing that discomfort grows claws when you ignore it long enough. People tell me I should have gone to a doctor sooner. They say it so casually, like it's obvious, like it's easy. They don't understand that once you get used to brushing things off, it becomes its own kind of reflex. I spent so many years convincing myself I was fine that stopping to consider I wasn't felt impossible, like admitting weakness would make everything collapse. Now I live in the collapse, and strangely, it's quieter than I expected. Not dramatic, not tragic, just the slow erosion of a body that spent too long trying to keep up with the lies I fed it. I go through the rooms of my home these days, and everything feels too large for me, like I shrank without noticing. The chair I used to sink into now feels hard. The bed that once felt comfortable now presses against every sore part of me. Even the mirror seems to show someone slightly tilted forward, like he's bracing himself for a fall that never quite arrives but never fully goes away. Sometimes I catch myself wishing I could talk to the person I used to be, the one who laughed off symptoms, the one who promised himself he'd start taking care of things next month. I don't want to scold him. I don't even want to change him. I just want to ask him one question. Why didn't you pay attention to yourself? Not in a dramatic, life-changing way, just in the small ways that matter, the ways that add up. But I know how he would have answered. He would have shrugged, said he felt fine, said he'd handle it later. He would have believed it too. I don't have a lesson to offer. No warning that will save anyone. People only listen when they're ready, and I never was. I'm not angry about that anymore. I'm just aware. Aware of what I traded without realizing it. Aware of how much life changes when you're no longer maintaining yourself, but patching yourself. Aware of how expensive it is, not the medicine, not the appointments, but the energy, the focus, the constant attention to what hurts and what might hurt next. Some nights I sit at the table with my pills lined up in front of me, and I think about the years when I could have gone for a walk without planning it, could have slept without waking from pain, could have breathed deeply without hesitation. I didn't cherish those years. I didn't even notice them. I assumed my body would always bounce back because it always had, until it didn't. And now I'm left with this version of myself, slower, smaller, held together by routines I should have started decades earlier. I don't expect anyone to understand what it feels like to wake up and immediately negotiate with your own bones. I don't expect sympathy. I don't expect anything, really. I just needed to say this out loud once. After all the years I spent pretending I was fine. This is the truth. I didn't take care of myself, and now taking care of myself is all I do. It's strange how life works like that, how the things you ignore eventually become the center of everything. I sit here now, in the same kitchen where I dismissed so many warning signs, and I let the truth settle into the room. It doesn't fix anything. It doesn't bring anything back, but it's real. And saying it, even this late, even when nothing can change, feels like the only thing left that still belongs to me.